Welcome, everyone. Can everyone please be seated at their seats? We are starting our stage acts. Thank you very much. Please be seated.
Hi, everyone. Please welcome the host of our evening, Ali Arslan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much indeed, everyone. Welcome here at Factory Berlin. It's wonderful for the ones coming late. Just squeeze in. We still got some spots here from where I'm standing. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I am obviously, let's dispel the notion right away and the myth. I am not a tech entrepreneur by any stretch of the imagination. Quite on the contrary, for those who know me, and there are some familiar faces here in the audience, I am an international TV presenter. I'm a moderator. I'm a journalist. I wear all those hats. But most importantly, I may not be a tech entrepreneur, but I am part of the global 2hearts community. As a German, Turkish, American, if you will, as somebody who's been shaped by all those three cultures, the American one, the Turkish one, and the German one, obviously, I very much feel at home here. And therefore, when Gülşah and her wonderful team approached me about moderating tonight, I didn't have to think too long about joining the most diverse and talented tech community in Europe, which you all are. I got to be very honest. When Gülşah told me a while ago, and we were all in this COVID haze, she was telling me about a new initiative that she founded, 2hearts, and I said, good luck, sounds great. and to see the numbers, I mean, just in my preparation for this evening, I looked it up, and really much respect. Already, 2hearts has more than 2,000 members representing over 100 nations. That's quite impressive. I think a round of applause for just that accomplishment in and of itself. And of course, all of you here in the audience, all of you participating, you are embodying this spirit, you're embodying this mission that 2hearts set out to accomplish. And I can tell you, this is the biggest 2hearts event ever. From what I've been told. In fact, the tickets were sold out in 3 hours, and there was a long waiting list. I know the team probably had to issue a lot of mea culpas to people not being able to join us here in Berlin, but it's my understanding there's a live stream, so big shout out to everyone joining us via live stream from wherever they may be joining us. Wonderful to have you all with us in the room, but also joining us, obviously, virtually. There's going to be a wonderful program here, and throughout this evening, we have a great program for you assembled. Many of the top tech leaders will be up there on stage in just a bit. We will have 2 panels, one moderated by yours truly, and the other one by my dear friend Constanze Ozai, who's of course another role model of this 2hearts community. Very much looking forward to those. Sadly, and I think that has to be said, we are of course here in good spirit, and we are here because we want to celebrate the 2hearts community, and we want to celebrate the mission that you have all set out. But it goes without saying, and unfortunately cannot be overlooked, we are living in turbulent times. For one, tomorrow is the first anniversary, a very sad anniversary. We are marking the first anniversary since the beginning of the war in Ukraine. I just came back from the Munich Security Conference where I moderated a few sessions, and obviously Ukraine was on everyone's mind. The other one, sadly enough, which affected, I know some of you personally, and sadly also me personally, is of course the more than 50,000 victims and casualties that were claimed by the devastating earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. It's something we want to pay tribute to throughout this evening, and I think even though Gülşah and team, we want to have a celebratory evening tonight, and we shall, obviously it's important that we all, including you entrepreneurs out there, we all have the empathy and we have the vision of what's going on out there beyond our world. So with that, of course, before we get it started, an evening like this, and you all know this from putting together events yourself, an evening like this could not be possible without sponsors. And therefore, a big thanks to Meta, Silicon Valley Bank, Telefonica Germany, General Atlantic, Stout Berlo, and Gründerszene. This is your applause. Thank you so much for making this evening happen. And now, dear friends, without further ado, enough about me, enough from me. Let's get the people up here on stage about whom this evening is and whom we owe this evening to. So without further ado, with a big round of applause, let's welcome all 4 co-founders on stage, Gülşah Wilke, Ming Sung, Oktay Erciyes, and İskender Dirk on stage.
Hi everyone, we wanted to be on stage for the very first part of this evening to say hello to all of you together, because 2hearts is a team effort. It's about us 4 joining forces, supporting you all, and it's wonderful to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
What does it mean to have 2 hearts? Please all raise your hand. I would like to ask you 3 questions. Please raise your hands. Do people struggle to pronounce your name correctly? If not, please drop your hand. Did you ever get into an uncomfortable situation due to looking differently? If not, please drop your hand. Are you the first one in your family to graduate from university? If not, please drop your hand. Now, if you look around, you will see you are not alone. We are in this together. There are many people in this room with at least 2 hearts. People who have had similar experiences. People who know some of your worst days and some of your best. At 2 hearts, we unite even more, Ali, 150 different nationalities. And maybe today is the first time in your life that you entered a room where there are more people with 2 hearts than with 1. Actually, for me, it is the first time. And probably this room is currently the most diverse room in Europe, unless there's a secret UNO conference going on that we don't know about, but I doubt it. So welcome everyone to the safe space of 2 hearts. What unites many of us is that we do not come from a privileged academic background, and yet we are here. Congratulations to all of us for this achievement. And we are not alone. Every 3rd child in Germany has a migration background, more than 13 million. These children very often come from underprivileged social backgrounds, and it takes around 5 generations to reach average national income. These children are less likely to participate in education, to achieve good results, and to develop the skills needed to succeed in the changing economy, especially in the tech industry. We founded 2 hearts to change exactly that. Now, being a family means you are part of something very wonderful. It means you will love and be loved for the rest of your life. If there's one thing that I am very proud of, next to my own family, it is 2 hearts. For me, 2 hearts really, really feels like a family. And I'm, thank you. And I'm very, very happy and proud to welcome you all here today to our biggest get-together ever. Welcome, everyone. What makes me in particular proud is the willingness of each and every person in this room to help and support unconditionally. The last more than 12 months have been very challenging for many of us. The Russian military aggression against Ukraine, the women freedom movement in Iran, and the current aftermath of the century earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, just to name a few heartbreaking happenings that we are facing right now. What counts most in these challenging times is what makes our 2 Hearts community unique. It's supporting and helping those that do not have a safe roof over their heads, that do not have a warm bed, and that do not have a family to hold on to. It is in these challenging times that we come together and help, when there are forces trying to separate us from each other and take away the humanity and hope in our hearts. This is where we can decide most impactfully to stand together and not against one another. Thank you. I am standing here as one of your hosts today. And also, I am one of you. I am Gülşah, and I was one of those 13 million children with a culturally diverse, socially underprivileged background. My grandparents came in the early 60s from Turkey to Germany with literally nothing but big hope and dreams. My parents did not have the privilege to go to university or finish high school, due to a lack of language skills and parents working 24/7 as guest workers in a factory. At home, we speak German and Turkish. We celebrate Christmas and Bayram. At my birthdays, we have German Käsekuchen and baklava. Some days, I feel very German. For example, when I track the time with literally a big watch on my desk. And some days, I feel very Turkish. For example, when I dance at a Turkish wedding with more than 300 guests. My name Gülşah clearly underlines my diverse background. Chosen faithfully by my parents with the beautiful meaning, Queen of Roses, I only understood later how unique this name is, by being mocked and called differently my entire life. I was born between two worlds, being torn between two hearts, two cultures, and yes, maybe also two identities. As much as my parents wanted the best starting conditions for me, the more I followed my goal, the more I recognized that these starting conditions are not that equal after all, not even close to that. Look, even Gülşah, our Turkish student, knows the answer to this question. My elementary school teacher. Gülşah, we both know that this result is just pure luck. Another teacher's comment on my first A in maths. You are supposed to go to Hauptschule, Gülşah. What else? Like all Turkish students. My teacher's recommendation at the end of my elementary school. Are you sure you are supposed to be here, or how can we help you? A senior executive at my first university workshop. Can we have 2 coffees, please? A senior executive and client at during my time at McKinsey. Wow, you speak German so well. An attendant of a recent DAX 30 business dinner. I struggled to find my place, being a stranger in the country I grew up, being a stranger in the country of my parents and grandparents. Also, there would have been easier ways for me than to follow a path that no one else in my family has taken before. Going to university, graduating, and working in technology. Well, what can I say? I dared. And there were so many people who didn't believe that I would come this far, and I'm very happy to have proved them wrong. Now, why am I telling you about my entire life and my story? Because I know that each and every one of you with 2 hearts could be standing here on the very same stage and telling your story. We are in this together, and you are not alone. Thank you. But you know what? My path, and maybe the path of many of you, has been too hard to be followed and walked alone by many more young people to follow. It depended on coincidences, on being deprived of many thoughtless moments that my peers could enjoy, and on the constant certainty that I cannot afford failure. It's 2023, and we are still walking down that hard path while others are being escorted with a smile. It's 2023, and we are here to change that. 2 Hearts is about community. It's about mentorship. It's about building tomorrow's tech society with cultural diversity. We are here for you to provide opportunities and create paths that might not have existed before. I want to be the person that I needed when I was younger, and I'm very sure that there are many more in this room that have the very same intention. I learned to appreciate what I have. I learned that I wasn't born between 2 worlds, but into 2 worlds. I recognized how gifted I am, with 2 hearts, 2 souls, and 2 perspectives. Even though I often started 1 step behind, I ended up 2 steps ahead. I learned to embrace my immigration background and my diversity. And for me, the single thing that I did not want to be associated at all during the beginning of my career eventually became my personal brand. It is my business drive combined with my diverse background and my passion to support and build diverse talent in technology. Thank you. Now, if there's one thing that I want you to take away from my opening today, it is the following. If there's no path that leads to your goal, create your own. You might be the first person, but always make sure not to be the last. Now, let me ask you a final question. Do you want to be the person that you needed when you were younger? If yes, please stand up. This is exactly what makes 2hearts unique, giving back and helping each other. While it's our differences that make us grow, it's our common values that connect our hearts. Let's all connect and grow together. Thanks so much for being a part of 2hearts and for being here tonight. Teşekkürler. Thank you. Thanks so much. Please, you can sit back. Thank you. And with that, I would like to hand over to my co-founder, Min Sung, who will give you a bit more insights into our thinking and why we co-founded 2hearts. Thank you.
Oh, this is a mic that I'm... All right. Hello, good evening. My name is Min Sung. I'm one of the founders of 2hearts. And I don't know, who is actually from Berlin tonight? Okay, who is not from Berlin? Well, thank you very much for coming. Yeah? All right, I need to prepare because I don't have flashy cards. Yeah, that reminds me like what the storyline is going to be. I try my best. So the thing is, like, I don't look like it, but I'm actually second generation, and I'm German. Yeah, I was born in Hamburg, and every time when I go to Israel and I say they're like, oh, you must be from Asia. I said, no, I'm from Germany, and they're like, oh, this is how the new Germans look like today. We need to be more careful. On the other hand, you know, I was studying in the US, there was a British-looking guy. I was like, where are you from? And he's like, I'm from China. I'm like, you don't look Chinese. And he's, where are you from? I'm from Germany. I was like, yeah, you don't look German. I was like, so, yeah, so like you and me, we are a product of globalization. And today I want to talk to you about a topic that is a little bit difficult for me to talk about, and it is diversity. Usually, like, we venture capitalists, we'd always talk about numbers, markets, blah, blah, blah. Yeah? But today it's something that is very close to my heart. My presence here with my Korean genes is very unlikely. My father was a poor fisherman in South Korea, and back then, in the 60s, it was the poorest countries in the world. But yet he had larger dreams. He was dreaming about a better life in a different country through hard work and perseverance to achieve and earn money and send it back to his family. So he ended up working on a ship, on a tanker, and this tanker ended up in Hamburg because it needed to be repaired. There he met my mother. She was a nurse there because Germany had a nursing crisis in the 70s, and so she was actually working there, and this is how they actually met each other in Germany. Not only they shared an improbable love in a different country, they also shared an abiding faith in an open and democratic society and in the potential of it. They gave me a Korean name because they believed in a tolerant society, names are not barriers to success. They imagined their children to going to the best schools because in a generous society, you don't need to be rich in order to fulfill your full potential. We weren't really rich, but somehow my father managed to get us to live in a very, very German neighborhood. And I went with the preppiest kids to the school, and I realized at some point their fathers, they were desk workers working in big corporations, insurance, banks, yeah, and my father, he had a small shop, lifting beverage cases, and his hands were always dirty. Who can relate to that? Some of you. And moreover, I was always ashamed of him because his German was really bad. I don't know if your parents are. Yeah. And when I looked into the mirror, I always, when I grew up, when I looked into the mirror, I always saw a Korean guy looking back at me. And I was like, oh yeah, man, I am Korean, so I need, and I asked my mother, I need to fly to Korea. I was there, and I was like, my people, I'm back. The Koreans, of course, and you know it, yeah? And the Koreans are like, yeah, not quite. Your mentality is different, you speak differently, and you're not fully Korean. And so it was really weird for me because I stuck in between. I didn't belong to Korea, I didn't belong to Germany, and what I did is I fully assimilated myself. I was trying to put away the Korean side, the Korean heritage, because I thought it was a handicap. Yeah, and then I thought, like working for international investment firms like Allianz X and Samsung Catalyst Fund, I somehow realized that my heritage and my upbringing somehow helped me to succeed, to make the team better. Because if you think about it, our parents, they gave us two principles. The first principle is that we need to adapt always, because they immigrated into a foreign country, and the principle of success was basically to adapt yourself, to integrate yourself. And this is what they passed on to us, because out of love. The second principle is always hard work. I know every one of you, every single one of you, your parents taught you to work your ass off, because this is the difference between winning and losing, between climbing up the ladder and falling down the ladder. And with that, I realized, with all that upbringing, my work ethic, and also my heritage to how I perceive certain things, I realized, hey, let's embrace that. Let's embrace my heritage. And the thing is, I thought I was alone with that. But there are so many of you in this room. No, really. And the thing is, and this is also why we are partly here in this room, because, some of us, we embraced our heritage too late. We are so old now, and, but you are the next generation, and we tell you, your heritage is an asset. It's not a liability. It's something that people need for all these grand challenges that we're about to face, because these global challenges require global mindsets. And I mean, there is, the climate crisis. It's not only in Germany. The whole world has a problem. There are authoritarian regimes attacking open democracies on land, sea, air, now space, and cyber. Yeah? Digitalization, a huge thing. I mean, Germany relied so many decades on its heavy industrial sector and automotive sector. And now suddenly we have AI, so ChatGPT, etc. We have electronic vehicles, and they need people. We need more innovation. We need people with different mindsets, because, there are statistics that open democracies are always outcompeting authoritarian regimes when it comes to innovation. Why? Because we're diverse. And with diversity comes more innovation. With more innovation comes more productivity, new technologies, and then economic growth and more wealth that we can share amongst each other. And as a venture capitalist, of course, we like to fuel money to the teams that are actually tackling these global challenges. And I want to say, this is data again. I love data. This is from KPCB, Kleiner Perkins, and they had the annual VC Bible, and they say that 60% of the unicorns are founded in the US, are founded by first and second generation. Okay, so who is first generation here? Please see your hand. Who's second generation? Who's founding a company? Yeah, look around, because you need to talk to each other later. Look around who you are. Okay. Good, perfect. The next thing, everybody talked about, diversity is super cool and we need diversity. And I was like, yeah, what? But where, I don't understand. Is there hard data? And Damien from Silicon Valley Bank, he was so kind to send me this presentation from McKinsey. And it says here, data suggests diversity correlates with better financial performance. And this is also why we need to talk about this, yeah? And I think our next panel will be about that. I'm really looking forward to that panel, because this is something that should encourage you. Your heritage is not a liability. It's such an asset that needs to be unlocked to challenge or to grab these challenges, these global challenges, and tackle these challenges. And this is what I want to encourage you. I know that you're all working hard, and with my closing remarks is, we're going to have a networking session, etc. I know you all work hard. I know that, but the thing is, what we realized as older folks, that hard working is sometimes not enough, and maybe you don't know it yet. But access is super important. But we are here. We are here, and I think this should be also the culture of this community, that we are helping each other and granting each other access. Access is super critical, because my father couldn't introduce me to somebody who was giving me a fancy internship. So let's help each other tonight, yeah? And talk to a person that you don't know. And I hope to see you tonight and talk and hear incredible stories. I know I talked a lot about my story, but I know that all of you have incredible stories as well to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed to both Gülşah and Min-Sung for your very inspiring stories, which there's probably not a single person in this room that couldn't relate to what you were saying. I certainly found myself recognizing some of those patterns throughout my adolescence. So thank you so much for that. And Min-Sung, indeed, this is also the reason why I'm now switched from the right to the left. You've already alluded to the first panel of the day, which we are coming to. And you see a bunch of empty seats here behind me, and they all want to be filled, and they will be filled. Picking up on where Min-Sung left off, the very impressive numbers about how diversity is actually a business case. And the first panel is titled Importance of Technology and Cultural Diversity in Europe. And I have a wonderful panel here assembled with me and for you. First up, she's the Managing Director of the Silicon Valley Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dagmar Bottenbruch. Great to have you. Have a seat. Have a seat, please. He is the head of public affairs and partnership and leads the diversity and inclusion division at Meta. Johann Felix Axenpalm is here. Johann, great to see you again. Have a seat, my friend. She's the general partner at La Familia VC, a European seed stage venture capital fund investing into B2B technology companies. Judith Dada. Hello, Judith. He's the co-founder and CEO of Choco. I love the name, the world's first supply chain unicorn with a mission to reduce food waste on a global scale. Daniel Kaczmar is here. Kachap, and I probably just butchered your name. Hello, Daniel. Have a seat. And last but certainly not least, she's a reporter and podcaster for the German startup magazine Gründerszene. Sarah Heuberger is here, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Sarah. Good to see you. Yes, I'm taking the old man's chair here. Thank you. I think it's very fitting. Great to have you all with us. As you can see, 40 minutes. We are on. Time is already taking. Dagmar, let's start right away. Importance of technology and cultural diversity in Europe is the topic that we are here to discuss. We talk a lot about Germany for obvious reasons today, but obviously the Silicon Valley Bank has branches all over the world, has branches in the US, has branches in UK. If you're looking at your bank's experience with cultural diversity in tech, in the US and the UK versus Germany, for instance, how much are we lagging behind here?
Well, as you mentioned, I mean, the Silicon Valley Bank has been around in the US. I mean, it was founded almost 40 years ago, so there it is a mature adult. In the UK, about 14, 15 years, so it's a teenager, and in Germany, we're still a baby, 4 years, 5 years old. So, in Germany, as far as SVB, I'll get to that in a moment, but I think generally speaking, of course, I think in terms of putting diversity, equity, and inclusion on the radar screen, I think we are quite a bit behind in Germany, but thanks to initiatives such as 2hearts, I think we're catching up, and it's very, very important because, you know, it's not about just about numbers and performance, it's about access, about a level playing field, about starting not from one step back, as Gülşah said before, but, you know, hopefully, you know, at least on the same line. As far as diversity is concerned at Silicon Valley Bank, it's very close to our heart, and that's why we're very happy to be supporters of 2hearts, because, you know, again, it's not just about the numbers, and I think the performance numbers we have seen, you know, better return on equity, better profit, blah, blah, blah, just to say. It's very important, but I think what's more important is to give people the access and the opportunity and to be aware of the fact that not everybody starts at the same level. And so, you know, SVB has made incredible efforts, you know, in the workforce, first of all, to give people opportunity and to have a very diverse workforce, and it's really starting to show in the number, and it's starting to slowly but surely move up the ranks into the board. And you know, that in the US, in the UK, and of course also in Germany.
Yeah, very, very impressive. The longevity of your bank, and also the comparison, of course, US/UK versus Germany. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement, but as you said, we're getting there with initiatives such as 2hearts, indeed. I'll come back to you in just a moment to talk about why you as the bank are supporting cultural diversity in the tech industry in Europe. But let me turn to Johan here now. Johan, you, of course, it's in your professional DNA as the lead of diversity and inclusion at Facebook. Nobody needs to tell you why cultural diversity is important in tech and entrepreneurship. You are personifying, you're embodying this very message. But beyond the numbers that Ming Song put forth, give us some real-life experience that supports this theory of importance, that supports the notion that cultural diversity is extremely relevant in tech and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I'm actually really happy that Min Sung showed the figures. I think we've been waiting for figures for a really long time to back what we're pushing for since years. So I think it's really important to have something to point to. So that's number one. Number two, for the company itself, there is, I think, two pillars that I want to point to. One is the work that we on product level. There basically is no product that's being launched in the company that is not going through a diversity review. And that implies people with diverse backgrounds, with certain skill sets, ages, migration background, sexual orientation. So that's all part of the product pipeline. The other point is, I think we need to take a look at leadership in the company. What we're struggling with right now is we talk about diversity a lot, and we take a look at junior levels, which I think is one realm, but I'm strongly pushing internally for a leadership perspective. I think we need to take a look at the top leadership in the company, because it trickles down. When I take a look at leadership that we have right now in the company, I don't necessarily feel myself reflected. That's something we work on, but to be honest, I think that's the case for so many companies out there, that we need to see ourselves in the leadership in order to make it to the path. So, back to your point, I think the figures are clear, but we also need to go stronger around how do we make it and what's the structural change we need in order to get there.
Very, very honest and transparent evaluation of your own company here, also assessment. I appreciate that. Most people would probably say, yes, we are here, the embodying shining example of how it needs to be, but you're saying, no, there's still a way to go, and you are certainly at the forefront of this debate. I'm going to come back to you, of course, to talk more about how you personally implement diversity at Meta. But let me bring in Judith here. Judith, we all know, let's not make any mistake and let's not kid each other. Foreign sounding names usually, and being culturally diverse may be an upside and an advantage at a place like this. But more often than not, it isn't. In your experience, do cultural diverse founders face any challenge with access to VC capital in Germany? Is that something that you have encountered? We know that the migrant background it could be an obstacle in many ways, but in a world where ideas, first and foremost, should matter, does it also apply here?
Yeah, sadly, 100%. We now have data. I think we have the second year of data. We now have the Migrant Founders Monitor. In case you haven't checked it out, I recommend you do so. It's the first broader study to look into this, and it shows very clearly that founders with a migration background struggle with access to venture capital. If you want to put a number on it, it's about 20% less access in comparison to kind of founders in general. I think you could say, well, getting venture capital in general is pretty hard. So is it that difficult, or is it that important that it's 20% harder for people with migration background? And I do think it actually matters a lot. And I don't just say this because I'm venture capital and we're all interested in making like billions and billions and billions of euros. I say this as like a really proud European, and I think in a current day and age where technology is becoming ever more important. If you look at what is currently happening in the space of AI, if you look at what's happening in the space of warfare, make no mistake, this is important to the future of the kind of free world that we all believe in and fight for. And so if you look at, for example, AI, once again, I think Europe is a little bit behind, for example, the US or China. And there is a founder called Imad. He's based in the UK, and he actually founded a company called Stability AI that initially trained a data set, or got a data set from LMU Munich. And he's right now the best hope that Europe has in terms of having a foundational model and having a company that is at the forefront and is able to measure itself with OpenAI. And it's founded by a founder. His name is Imad, who's obviously not originally from the UK. And so I think at the end of the day, it's really for me about any chance that we miss of not tapping into a brain that could be the next Einstein or could be the next Bill Gates, I think is a massive missed opportunity for Europe, is a massive missed opportunity for the economy, of course. And so I think then the 20% actually matters, because I do think it could make the big difference in terms of us having a really relevant future and a really relevant seat at the table versus not having that. And so I think the 20%, it might seem small, but it actually can have a huge outcome in the end. Yeah,
20% actually does not sound small at all. It's actually quite disheartening to hear that there is such a gap, as I said, in a world where it's really about who brings the best idea and about profitability and so on and so forth, that the name and the cultural background of somebody who's pitching the idea still matters is extremely disconcerting. I do want to know, of course, from you, how we're going to bridge that gap and provide more fair and equal access to funding. And I will revert to you, of course, for that. But Daniel, let me talk to you here about Choco. You're the co-founder and CEO of Choco, as I said, the world's first food supply chain unicorn with a mission to reduce food waste on a global scale. How does diversity among your employees affect the success of the company that you founded? Some tangible, can you even put it in tangible numbers? Probably difficult, no?
So I think first of all, it's a bit like, who are we looking for? Yeah, and when I think about what we at Choco look for, essentially we look for people that embrace change, that like new ideas, that bring new ideas, that are okay with if their job is today different, that will be tomorrow, that are not afraid of it, that when a large problem or a large challenge come up, which come up every single day, that embrace it, that don't shy away from hard work. I mean, let's face it, there's no way around building a world-class company or world-class fund or whatever you want to do world-class without hard work. And when I saw the numbers before of how many of like the large or of the US unicorns were founded by immigrants, it's absolutely not surprising for me, because when part of your parents or one of your parents came to a new country, eventually not with like strong economic background, eventually not strongly educated either, then they needed to bring all of those values with them. Right? They need to embrace the change. They need to accept the challenge of moving somewhere despite it being hard. They needed to learn, and they need to work hard. And so I think for us, Choco, we actually love hiring people with these backgrounds, because these values are so fundamental. And I think we couldn't have really done it without those values. And I really assume it likely is the same with most unicorns, or with most startups out there, really.
Yeah, very interesting. And of course, I want to know more later on about you with a non-typical German last name, if you will. If you encountered those difficulties that Judith was talking about. But let me bring in Sarah here from the startup magazine Gründerszene, of course, which I'm sure is familiar to all of you here in the audience. Sarah, good to see you. I think last time we bumped into each other at the Web Summit in Lisbon.
Yeah, we had a good time in Lisbon.
We had a good time. That was...
no, so the thing was...
Yes.
No, I have to explain it.
Yeah, well, it's...
Just passed, yeah.
Yeah, barely passing. Yeah, well, it's...
Just passed, yeah.
Yeah, barely passing.
German startup school system passed, yeah.
Yeah, barely passing.
German startup school system passed.
Barely passing.
German startup school system
passed. Barely passing the grade, yeah.
German startup school system passed.
Barely passing the grade, yeah. Dagmar, clearly...
school system passed.
Barely passing the grade, yeah. Dagmar, clearly through your presence here, but also the support that the Silicon Valley Bank has given to this event, clearly you are supporting cultural diversity in the tech industry here in Europe. Why? Why does it matter? Why does it matter to the Silicon Valley Bank that you're saying something needs to be done here, we need to improve, and we are certainly here at the forefront of trying to make that happen?
Various reasons. I think I think it was already alluded to. I mean, number one, it is reflected in the numbers, but also what Judith was saying. You are overlooking people. You're overlooking amazing talents, and people are not being given an appropriate chance. And that is just, again, if you want to put it into, let's leave all the emotions aside and let's just put it into economic terms. You are leaving amazing potential for innovation, for making change, for solving the huge pressing problems we have. You're leaving that on the table, under the table. And that is just completely crazy, and I don't think we can afford that. And I think, we all know, and again, for that, we probably, again, don't even need numbers. I think we have seen on so many different occasions what diverse teams can deliver. I mean, I'm a big football fan, so Tuesday evening, I watched the Frankfurt-Napoli match, which unfortunately ended badly for Frankfurt. But you see two amazingly diverse teams there on playing this match. And if you compare the teams to the 1974 German World Cup team, which was, of course, completely German, and nobody would say that was a bad team, but things change, and the world is different, and the world has different requirements, and you see that diversity works, and you see it in so many different contexts. And I remember Judith, last time we were on a panel that was more about women, and I said something to the tune of, I think it would be better, and you said, I know it is better. And that's very, very true. I mean, it just simply, I think it's not even a choice we have. I think it's an absolute must that we take into account whatever we have, whatever it takes, and put together in a room 10 completely equal people, try to make them solve a problem, and I don't think you'll have a good outcome. And so, I think it's such a no-brainer, and that's why the Silicon Valley Bank does it, and that's why we in Germany do it as well. And also, we want to be active here because we think every country every country to some extent might have different diversity issues. We don't have the same issues in the US, we don't have the same issues as in the UK, and we rather play an active role to do the right things for our diversity issue and for addressing and giving opportunity to those groups that are underprivileged, underserved here. And by the way, our latest 2 hires come from the 2hearts network, and one of them is here. Hani, hello. Hello. And we're so thrilled and so excited about that we have a person that still has a Syrian passport until next week, and keep that. And the other one is a German-Korean 2hearts person, and we're really looking forward to welcoming them, and thanks 2hearts for bringing them to us.
Yeah, welcome. I mean, it's really wonderful. They put together this incredible talent pool, right? Which companies like you can now focus and take good advantage of. And as you said, it's all about acknowledging the changing times, recognizing that reality is changing, adapting accordingly. That's certainly something that Meta, Johan, is also doing by default and with conviction. Interestingly enough, the diversity debate, if you're looking at where it originated from, this is probably a wave that started. I remember when I lived in the US, the first diversity, diversity leads were being implemented. We were a far cry from that in this part of the town. The wave is now coming here, and here you are representing Meta now as a diversity and inclusion lead. Give us a sense, for those who may not be familiar with your work, how does your everyday look like? How do you implement diversity at a humongous company such as Meta?
I want to come back to a point that Dagmar just mentioned that I think is really important, which is I think we're still struggling in the German-speaking region to find the DNA of the diversity, equity, inclusion conversation. So what I observe with our company is you have clearly defined groups of people, Hispanics, Black people, Asian people, that we talk about. And we have great ways to measure those. That's not the case in Germany. So when you talk about diversity, it's man, women. So we have a system in place that is seemingly protecting people's privacy, but I think it's protecting the current system. And that's a tricky one to talk about. I don't think we'll ever make milestones forward if we are not able to measure people's backgrounds, if they're willing to actually share it. So that makes our work in the DACH, or the German-speaking region, a bit tricky, I think. And I also think it's an illusion to believe that only by working hard, as Ming Sung said, we'll be able to move the needle. I think the conversation needs to become much more political. We've seen it around the conversation for women in boards, Aufsichtsräte. There was a lot of outburst when we first talked about the quota. We're seeing more and more reception for that topic, at least, among politics. But I do think that it's going to be incredibly hard to reach those levels if there's not a certain level of measurement. Probably doesn't have to be a quota, but something that we can pinpoint to in 10 years from now and say, hey, this is where we started, this is where we're going to go in, whatever, 10 years from now. So I think that's instrumental. And for our work daily, it's still being in leadership meetings and raising voices, sort of building that muscle of representation, which doesn't happen naturally, I would say. So I think most corporations tend to go the easiest way to innovation, to product launches. So I think you need to have a strong team in place that is empowered, that has budget and resources, has research, that you then feed into all things of the pipeline. So it's nothing that's going to come naturally, but it's teams on the ground connecting with leadership globally, and it's daily work. It might sound fun and look fun on stages, but it's really it's hard work of building allyship, raising your voice, and building that muscle, which doesn't happen overnight.
Nobody's doubting that. Hard work indeed. And I appreciate the point that you raised about we should not kid each other. There are still a lot of people out there who want to preserve the status quo, of course, in order to protect their own spheres of influence and power, and that's why probably your plea to make the debate more political. And you did the numbers that you have put forth about 20% less investment for people with a cultural diverse background. Now, of course, the billion-dollar question is, how do we change that? How do we establish a more fair, equal access to funding in the Gründerszene so that next time we meet back here on stage, we don't talk about the 20% gap?
Yeah, I think it's two things, and I would mention two examples. The first one we heard about earlier today, which is access. So let me just give you one example. I had coffee with a founder, German, who raised 100 million for his company. And he shared his story in terms of getting access to venture capital. And he said he's from Nuremberg, or like a small village beside Nuremberg, and he did not have any friends or any access points in venture capital, except one. Now, who was that one common connection he had to the VC world that ended up opening myriads of doors and getting him massive amounts of funding? It was a guy at another VC fund that he had met during an internship at BCG. And I think this is exactly the point. It's sometimes about these access networks. If you look at the people or interns who work at BCG, I'm guessing you see the same type of diversity representation that you see in the VC world, and it's about those common access points to networks and people who are able to make a warm intro and to open a door for you. And so I think we've heard that before. I think we now have various interns and analysts and associate and principals from the 2heart network that work at German VC funds, and I think that's already a massive step forward because you now have one connection or one kind of common node to someone who's able to then, pick up the phone and call 20 VC funds and say, hey, you need to check out this founder because he or she is amazing. And I thought it was really interesting because this guy, to some extent, was also underprivileged coming from this village in Nuremberg, and had he not had that BCG internship, he probably also would have had zero connections to anyone in VC and would have had to go for cold intros via LinkedIn, which never work fairly or well at all. And so that's the first example. I think it's just about access, and I think this ecosystem is providing that, and so we just need to do more of that. I think the second example is a little bit of an uncomfortable one, because I think it goes deeply into the, do they need to change or do I need to change? And so I always call it kind of the schizophrenic triangle. I think at the end of the day, if we all look at our parents, maybe we can raise our hands, whose parents with a migration background are somewhat bitter about their migration experience in Germany? Right, we all know kind of the bitterness of migration and kind of failed migration and what that can do, I think, to ambition and to just a positive outlook on life. And so I think if you look at the schizophrenic triangle, I think the first is affecting change. I think you just mentioned that, right? You have to raise your voice. We need to affect policy changes, hire more diverse people. If we get access, we need to find access in these forums, and so on and so forth. I think it's the most obvious point. I think the less obvious point is the second one, which is accepting that stuff will go much more slowly than you want it to go and not getting bitter about it. We just raised, 2 female partners in our fund, we just raised 250 million euros of capital for our new funds. Had I been bitter and walked into every single room, thinking, oh my God, another 70-year-old white man, he's definitely not going to give me any money. Had I kept that bitterness, I would have never been able to get myself into a positive outlook and just believing that I can do it. And I think the third thing is really assuming positive intent. If you look for racism in this world, you're going to find it fucking everywhere, because it is everywhere. But if you see ghosts and if you see bad things happening all around you, I think it's going to distract you from just keeping your eye on the ball and assuming positive intent, because yes, people are racist, but oftentimes they're not bad people for doing that. They just don't know better, and we need to teach them, and we need to have the conversation and be uncomfortable. But I think it's really about kind of keeping that positivity inside of yourself and not becoming my dad, who became, in the end, really bitter about his journey in Germany, which I think, in the end, stood in the way of a lot of opportunity that he could have had if he had kind of, embraced the schizophrenic triangle. Yes, we need to affect change, but we also need to keep positive intent and accept that change in many instances will be slower than we hope to, and then find other allies that open those doors and give us that chance and that access.
Wow. Thank you so much for that valuable knowledge that you've imparted with this audience. I think we all found ourselves in that spot, one way or another, being bitter or being disenfranchised or disappointed, and to overcome that. And it's really very inspiring to see someone like you sit up there. And I think even your father, if he saw that his daughter is kicking it and rocking it and raising all this money, I'm sure even he probably would come around and say, hey, maybe all that hard work was worth it in the end. So much kudos to you. Congratulations indeed. Daniel, if we're talking about founders with a diverse background, and you've known you are one yourself, but certainly you've met many of them outside as well, is there an extra value that they're bringing to the table? Is there something extra, perhaps even that hunger, that extra bit of hunger? What is your observation?
So it's a couple of things. In the end of the day, you need to be willing to take an extreme amount of risk. Yeah? And if your parents come from another country and they tried somewhere else, then you see this at home. So that's like a fundamental value. We spoke about hard work before. And then, let's look at numbers. You know, and we had like, I think before we had the Amazon example, the Apple example, Syrian, with Tesla, with SpaceX. So we have so many companies in Germany. I think we have essentially 2 Berlin startups that went blue chip, one of them being Delivery Hero also, as an immigrant co-founder. And so essentially at this point, as an investor, if you shy away from immigrant founders, you're a shit investor. Like it's almost a natural filter. I got an introduction. We're raising our very first round of Chocos about 5 years ago, and here in Berlin. And I got an introduction by my former boss, and it's kind of an introduction that you don't say no to. I was lucky where I worked before, and so I met that person and wanted to meet me downstairs in the lobby, office being upstairs, 3rd floor. And then we met downstairs, and then he has his jacket and the shoes, and then I arrive, and he's like, I thought you looked very different. Like, okay, let's go up. It's like, all right. So you see, we never raised money from that fund, and I mean, I think that fund today would have, whatever, 200, 300 extra investment. Bad for them, yeah? That's our filter, yeah? Like, we are great, yeah? With the backgrounds that we have, we're willing to take risks, we're willing to do hard work, we're willing to do really challenging things. And if people don't want to invest in them, don't want to invest in us, then fair enough, they don't make the return. We can still build a great company. And you know, to the point of like, is it getting better? Is it getting worse? In the end of the day, if we're truly accountable to why we all sit here, why we're all in this room today, like it has to get better. Now I don't know when you went into VC, but eventually, like 20 years ago, you have not been there. But now UDIT is there. And there's many other partners in VC that are there and that maybe share a similar background. And so today you can reach out to them. And maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago, you couldn't. So at least now you have the opportunity to get a fair chance. So I think it's really important to look on the positive side and just like convince with your own abilities of building a great company, of showing great value, and you'll find support. Like it might be a bit harder to find, but like you'll find it. And again, if someone not investing in you, like it's their own fault. It's great for you. You just disqualified a bad investor. Yeah.
And of course, building that support network where you all open doors for one another, that's what 2hearts is all about, of course. And as you said, the seeds are being planted, and it's just a matter of time until that world is coming into fruition. Sarah, there's probably not a single prominent person in the Deutsche Gründerszene that you have not interviewed yet. And I asked Daniel before if there was something extra, something special, an added value perhaps, something outstanding about founders with a diverse background. What is your experience when interviewing founders with a so-called migrant background? As a journalist, are you encountering any differences there?
I would say yes, but like I said earlier, it's not so many, unfortunately. I remember brainstorming with Gülşah before this event, and she was like, we were talking about who else should be invited, and it's just that the list is not so long, unfortunately. So, I mean, there are a few, and we're trying to put focus on them, but it's just, yeah, the majority. I mean, if you look on our website, Gründerszene, and then oftentimes I open it and like I'm afraid myself, and it's like white dudes, blonde, and it's like all these like 3 guys, and they all look like they went to the WHU, which is this like private university. So, and then like we also like we talk with my colleagues where, okay, we have to like pay attention to that, but it's just so easy. So I would say whenever I talk to people who have a bit more diverse background, it's for sure that they've like worked way harder to be there where they are than others. So you can really see that, and like the spirit, it's very anecdotal, but I would say there is a difference. But sometimes also like what you said, some of them have also become bitter, and I also understand that you become bitter. And then, like, I remember one founder who said he's gonna take his business to the US because he doesn't want to raise here. So he just like moved his business to the US and raised his VC money there. And so I would say a lot also has to do, like we already talked about, VCs being very non-diverse. So I really think that responsibility starts with the VCs as well. And like, I don't know how often we had a press release, oh, we have a new partner, and it's another white guy in his 40s, and you're like, oh wow, another one. And then they say, yeah, but we're very diverse on our mid-level, like what you said, like it's mid-level, but it's not partner level. So, and then they tell us, yeah, we don't find anyone, but then you look at La Familia, and it's possible, like there are many diverse investors as well. So yeah, I would really put the responsibility on the investors first, and yeah. And maybe one more thing to add is, like a lot of VCs have also understood the importance, and there are, for example, I think Google has this diversity fund, and there are these few initiatives. And then I think, okay, that's great, but then you look at the numbers, and it's like 2 million diversity fund for 30 startups or so. And then I always ask myself, like, why don't you just use your regular fund to fund more diverse people? Like, why do you have to create this like extra fund, which is this like kind of like little bonus program giving out like little nice tickets, but they don't really matter if you have to like share them among 30 other companies. So
yeah, fig leaves at the end, you know, rather than. But thank you for that anecdotal point, and the fact that you're saying you're not encountering that many when interviewing, I think speaks volume, and something that obviously we're trying to change here. I'm looking at the time, being mindful of the time. We have approximately only 5 minutes left, but I do want to bring you in, all of you in one more time, and that is with a very simple question. We are, of course, here assembled in this room in Factory Berlin, hundreds of people. Many, as we just found out, have come from outside of Berlin today just to be here this evening. Dagmar, all of you using your own experience, what is your message? What is your message to them? What would you like them to take away, not just from this panel, but this evening?
Well, I think the most important message is to feel encouraged and to feel enabled, and to not get bitter even against sometimes adversity, and to reach out. I mean, there are so many people here in this room that can probably help each other, and just reach out and find that first person that can make that one introduction that could change your life. Yeah. And give you that little bit of tailwind that you might need to make it to the next level. Doesn't mean you'll automatically raise a bunch of venture capital, because it is hard no matter what, but I think it can get you the first appointment.
Yeah. Johan is somebody who is dealing with the subject matter on a daily basis, also judging and based on your personal experience. What is the one thing that you want them to know?
It might sound a bit like opera-free, but I think the only thing I want to say is now is our time. There is so much happening globally that feeds into our biography that is incredibly uplifting. I think it started somehow on May 25th, 2020 with George Floyd. I think something happened in the States that trickled over to Germany and flipped the entire conversation. So that's happening. People are having a much higher awareness of what's going on globally. Information sharing as hell. It's just crazy. Within milliseconds, people become part of a global movement. And that combined with insights that show that diversity is key and actually pays off, which I'm like, here you go, you have it all. Combining these two things, I think, is just gonna skyrocket in the next year. So now is our time.
Now is our time. I think that is something that many people here can subscribe to. Judith, I'm going to end with you. I'm going to go Sarah, and then Danny, I'm going to give you the last word, Sarah.
So maybe just to summarize it, don't be bitter and avoid the shit investors.
By the way, if this panel had taken place on US television, we would have bleeped out a lot of words, yeah. But we're amongst friends, and I appreciate the honesty. Daniel?
So,
based on your experience also, you are living proof of what can happen.
So, I think when you start a company, like the first few hundred hires that you make are each really critical. They're essentially all co-founders, and you want to make sure every single one is like a great hire. And I remember probably our 6th or 7th hire that we did, and it was a guy applied, had no picture on LinkedIn, and we had a phone call, not a video call. And so we had a good interview, and towards the end of the interview, I asked him, yes, okay, but are you a hard worker? And then he started laughing a bit. And what then followed was just a swallow of confidence. And he was like, my parents came from Ghana, and they worked their ass off, and they made it. Of course I'm a hard worker. And so one of the best hires that we did, someone who really contributed strong to our company. And so my message is like, you need to take this kind of confidence. Like there's an advantage that we have, and I think that is my main recommendation.
Yeah. Thanks indeed, Daniel. This is Judith, you were already kind enough to share some pearls of wisdom with us about what these highly talented individuals should not do, become bitter, overcome the frustration at times. I think that's daily bread and butter for all of us. What's the one thing they should do? What is the one message that you would convey here?
Dare to take risk. I think one of the biggest privileges in life that we all have is living in Germany. How deep can we fall? It is really a question to consider, especially with all the stuff that's currently going on in the world. I think that's the biggest ticket you'll ever get and the biggest permission to take all the risk in the world. I think the odds are ever more in your favor and history is on your side. So just take that opportunity because many people in the world don't even have a shot at this.
Indeed. Dear friends, importance of technology and cultural diversity in Europe. I think I speak for all when I say, even considering the relatively short amount of time we've been able, and you've been able, our esteemed panelists were able to produce a very content-rich, inspiring debate. Dagmar Bottenbruch, Johann Axel Palm, Judith Dada, Daniel, of course, Sarah Heuberger. Thank you all for being here. This is your applause. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Just leave the microphones on the chairs. We're going to have we have one more panel coming up later on, and I think that was quite an inspiring message. Many quotes, Gülşah, we can take from this. I hope you're tweeting. I think this is a lot of tweetable quotes here that we are hearing. Dear friends, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. This is what I do for a living. I usually love being on stage. I like listening to stories like these and moderating, inspiring people. The next part, I'm not going to lie, is a segment that I wish I did not have to moderate and did not have to be a part of. It is, of course, about the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Gülşah has already mentioned it. And unfortunately, my father's side is coming from Antakya, from Hatay, one of the region's hardest hits with, sadly, many casualties. So it is a difficult segment to moderate. It's a difficult segment, but it is an important one because I think this is something we all have to be more mindful of. Yes, Ukraine is important. Yes, Iran is important. No doubt about it. But to be quite honest, as a journalist, for my taste, there's not enough coverage here in Germany as far as the earthquake and the ramifications of this devastating earthquake is concerned. So I'm very grateful to Gülşah, to Two Hearts, to all the founders that they put together the segments where we're talking to a couple of Two Hearts members who sadly, like me, have also been personally affected. Please welcome Cihat Cengiz and Simay Kocakaya. Come up here on stage, grab a microphone while you're at it, Cihat and Simay. Join me on this part of the stage. Please, good to see you. Merhabalar. Merhabalar, hoş geldiniz. Come a bit closer. Look, 2-3 weeks ago, I think I speak for all of us and many out there. My world has changed, and I know that goes for you as well, Simay. How did you and your family experience this devastating earthquake in Turkey?
Well, my family, so my parents are from Antakya, Hatay as well, and they migrated to Germany. So I was born here, but I have a very strong bond to where my parents came from. And I usually visit Antakya once a year during summertime. And I even got a tattoo from leaves of a laurel tree because this is the symbol of Hatay. So I have a very strong connection. And when we heard what happened 2 weeks ago, our world literally just changed overnight. And from our point of view, we were paralyzed, I guess, I would say, because we couldn't reach some of our family members, and this brought in a lot of anxiety for us. And also then we heard that almost everyone in our family lost their literal existence and their homes and everything that comes with it. We were like, okay, we have to do something here. We have to help our family. We have to help the people in Antakya and also in Hatay, but also in the other regions with my friends, to rebuild these locations, to help the people in need, because as you all know, help is arriving there, but it's taking a lot of time and it is a slow process. So when we have the chance and also the channel to reach these people in a more or faster way, why shouldn't we do that?
Yeah, indeed. Simay, thank you. I know it's not easy to talk about this and for you to come up here and be brave and share that story, even though it has affected you personally. Cihat, the same goes for you, of course. Where is your family from in Turkey and how has it affected you?
Well, I mean, funny enough, same Antakya. It's a coincidence, I'm sure that...
Yeah, three people from Antakya on stage here talking about this, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think one thing which kind of, I mean, obviously, I grew up in Germany, born in Germany. Antakya is some areas we visit once a year, but when some things like that happen, you suddenly realize what you missed and what it gave you to be a person that you are at the moment. So my mom was always kind of talking about how proud she's about that region. And obviously, as a teenager, I used to say, yeah, of course, we go again for 6 weeks there, and not again, I want to go somewhere else. But I think if something like that happens, you suddenly realize that some of the elements you're embodying actually comes from a region that lived that every day. That was something I finally realized on that day.
Yeah, absolutely, I can totally relate. I mean, at the end of the day, I remember when I was younger and during summer recess, we all went to Antakya and Samandağ in Hatay to visit grandmother and so on and so forth, and to think that that part of the world is, at least for the time being, no longer exists. I mean, that's what my cousins are telling me. The city of Antakya literally does not exist anymore. It's been,
right.
It is extremely frustrating to hear. Not to mention, of course, Gaziantep, Kahramanmaraş, many other cities. This is just a reflection that 3 people from Hatay are here, but many, unfortunately, 10 regions, 10 provinces in Turkey have been struck. Is there anything this audience and anyone joining us, of course, what can they do to support you, your family, the people in the region, Simay?
Well, when I heard about the earthquake in Turkey and also like that Hatay was a part of that, I immediately started to like raise awareness. I talked to a lot of like all of my friends. I talked about it on social media. And my mom and I were like, okay, we have to like at least help these people with financial aid and gather some money, get some donations, and to send them over immediately so the people can there then on site decide, okay, how do I want to spend this money? What do we need right now? Do we need like hygienic products? Do we need tents or whatever it may be? So our priority is like to get the donation as fast as possible to Turkey.
Yeah, indeed. So the sooner, the better. People are still,
Yes.
many of them sleeping on the street. Tents, from what I understand, there's still a shortage of tents. Jihad, also from your plea, from your perspective, what would you say? What can people do in this very difficult situation?
I think it's up to everyone to decide what's the best way to help. I was the same way, kind of paralyzed, and then it was a different dynamic, and then I suddenly realized that I can't do much, but I need to think about the next steps. So what I did was, and people who know me, LinkedIn and I are not really good friends, but it's the first thing I did was to reach out to my network to say, this is what I'm doing, which is focusing on the aftermath of it. So with the money we raised, we're basically focusing not anymore on the tents and all of that, because there's supply coming, and there's a demand, there's a supply. I think it's difficult enough to get it there, but we said, like, what can we do to support the aftermath? And so we started contacting companies in the prosthetics area, because my cousins, they kind of lost limbs, is one of the things which happens quite unfortunately, that, you know, your hands or your leg gets stuck and it doesn't get blood supply, and then it's basically amputation. And so we basically, literally, I just switched and thought about like the next year and said, like, what do they need? And I didn't do what Simai said, like I didn't focus on well, we did that, but like I quickly shifted to something different. So something I would like to say is, like, you most probably have someone you know who's affected, and the best way is to reach that person and try to ask, what is it about? I have friends telling me, can I support one of the children with, I don't know, 100 euros per month for perpetuity until they go to school? It's one person. You might say, well, it's one person only. But I think it's actually, in my opinion, the better way of doing it, but I don't want to change everyone's mind on this. So this is what we did.
No, and you said it from the onset. Everybody clearly, he or she has to decide how to help in what shape or form, but every help, any help, I think that's abundantly clear from listening to both Simai and Jihad, is very much welcome. And speaking of help and donations, there are two charity organizations that I want to point out here and mention by name. One is United Hearts, a very valuable organization that is doing a lot on that front, and I think Sedef Aygun is here with us. Could you stand up, Sedef? This is your applause. Thank you. So Sedef is around in case people have questions. You can always approach her. Otherwise, it's unitedhearts.Berlin. They can always go on the website. And the other one is whitehelmets.org, and Laila Kiki is also here. Laila, right there. Thank you so much. And these are the two, there are many more, of course, out there. Everybody's doing their best, but these are the two that 2hearts has singled out, and you see the QR codes behind me. So if you do want to help, these are the QR codes that you can use to do your little part. Jihad, Simai, I know this wasn't easy. I know from personal experience it's going to take a while to cope with this issue. It's going to be with us. And I think any little bit of awareness that we can raise is extremely important, because this is a subject matter and a pain that's not going to go any time soon. So in that regard, Jihad, Simai, and 2hearts, thank you for highlighting this very important issue. Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Just drop the microphones there. And thank you for being willing to come up here and share your story. Now, ladies and gentlemen, now we've already had the first panel. I'm very much looking forward to the second panel, which is promising to be equally important and inspiring. And for that, I'm very, very delighted to welcome on stage as the moderator, my good friend and role model of this entire community. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend, Constanze Ozay. You have the floor.
Very much, Ali, for your very, very kind words. Yeah, I think there is no appropriate or suitable bridging to what we've heard right now, so I'm not even trying. So what I want to start with is just, bringing the panelists on stage now to introduce them to you, and I'll start with Fariza, Tahir, Marie, Ivan, Chun, please come up, join me here on stage, please. Hey. Thank you. I think we have one mic. Do we have one more mic, by the way? Or otherwise, we'll just share, I guess. Okay? Yeah? Okay, no worries. We'll be fine. Just a quick introduction. I'm Constance. Thanks again, Ali, for the very nice intro. I'm the Director for Corporate Innovation, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Culture at Telefonica. And I'm hiring, by the way. I'm hiring. And so do some of my colleagues from technology who are here as well today. But I'm sitting here with my hat on as a 2hearts member. And I'm very, very honored to be in this role and to be moderating the panel today with you all. And this panel today is, and Ali mentioned that earlier, it's about a celebration. It's about a celebration. It's about shedding a light, sharing the spotlight on 5 very inspiring, motivational, and individual success stories that you're going to hear from very soon. Thank you. But it's also, in the bigger context, it's also a story about community. It's a story about the power of community and what can happen, how lives can change, how careers can change, and how actually whole movements can change when we come together. So without further ado, because we know time is ticking and there's always too much to share for too little time, I want to introduce the panelists to you. And I'm very sorry, every printer just wouldn't work today. So I have my cell phone here, no fancy cards, so apologies if I'm on my phone for the whole panel. But let me start with the introductions, because I think this is important to give a bit more context on your backgrounds and to really, give more texture to who you are. And I want to start with Fariza. Fariza, you were born in Chechnya, raised in Germany and in France as a refugee. And you grew up with multiple hearts. And after you've graduated from European Business School, I think 2 years ago, you started with the VC fund B2V Partners. And I think, and I do want to mention that last year you were selected among 75 fellows from all over the world, from Included VC, which is an organization who empowers more diversity in the VC industry. So give it up for Fariza. Very impressive. And be prepared for a lot of clapping today for this panel. Second, Tahir. You're only 24 years old, I think. 24 it is, right? You're a student, but already also an entrepreneur and founder of the web design agency Lila Cactus, love the name. And you're actually an OG, so you've been with the community from the get-go, supporting the community, managing the community, and we're very glad you're up here today to share your story. Thank you. Give it up for Tahir. And we have Chun. Chun, you are the co-founder of Cyclio, which is an app that helps women, and this is my new favorite term, and please everyone take notes, fellow menstruators with painful periods to thrive in the workplace, which is actually about raising awareness for gender-sensitive health issues and making the workplace, in that sense, more inclusive. And before you started your own company, you were a consultant, a strategic consultant. And then we have Marie. And Marie, you're an intern at the investment team of Cherry Ventures, which is an European early stage VC. And before that, I think you had stages at SEB and also at Trade Republic, where you were part of the finance team. So welcome, Marie. Give it up for Marie. And last but not least, Ivan, you are the co-founder of UA Talents, and you've been an active member at 2hearts, I think, for 2 years, 1 or 2 years. And you have a background as a startup founder, artificial intelligence practitioner, and you've also done consulting for Deloitte in the M&A business. So welcome, Ivan. Very much looking to hear your stories. So let me start with Fariza and Tahir, because as you know, like the core power of 2hearts is mentorship. And I would love to hear from you both, first of all, how did you get to 2hearts? What was the impact that 2hearts had for you? Fariza, maybe you start first.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much. So grateful to be here. And I think it's such a big question, right? Like how I got to 2hearts and how it changed my life. It's actually a very long story, I would say, because as you mentioned, I was originally born in Chechnya, and right before the Chechen War, and then my parents decided to come to Germany with me, grew up in Germany, and spent some time in France as well. And never really had anyone to look up to, especially not like in the very small town in Rheinland-Pfalz that I grew up in. And yeah, after graduating from school, spending some time in the United States, I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to a small business school in Germany with even less people to relate to, or so I thought, because right around the time that I was supposed to graduate, I think it was exactly like the month I was graduating, I saw a post about Gülşah from my university, because she was an alumni, and I think she had graduated like 10 years before me, and I read her story, and...
Five.
2. We're from the looks the same year. And yeah, and I read her story, and it was so mind-blowing to me, because it sounded exactly like someone had gone through what I had gone through, even though it was a different country, but very similar problems maybe. And I also read about 2hearts, and then, because she had founded 2hearts right around that time, and I thought I would just give it a shot and like cold reach out to her on LinkedIn, and she responded right away, which made me so happy, and not only explained how I could become part of the community, but also asked if I would want to help and become part of her team. And then I got to know her, and I think during like your first call with me, she had mentioned if I wanted to do like a mentoring call with her. And I never had a mentor at that time, and I was so excited, but I still remember I didn't want to show my excitement too much because I wanted to keep it cool. And then, yeah, ever since, I feel like the mentorship through 2hearts, but also the community, but also like getting to know Gülşah changed my life, not only with like one single event that you might maybe think, oh, it's like one single thing that happened and that's a success story. I think what really makes this relationship so special is that I knew I could reach out to her in like every situation possible, even if it's just small things. I would sometimes even just ask her over WhatsApp, and then whenever she answered, I was like, okay, that's what I'm doing, because that's what she told me to do. And I think that led me to work in startups after graduating from university, and then eventually ended up working in VC at a VC fund called B2B Partners, which I'm very happy and proud to be part of. But I think I would have never gotten to this point if it wasn't for her, simply because I feel like, and I'm sure many people can relate to this, that you need some kind of guiding person, especially when you're still young, when you're early in your career. You don't have anyone in no one in my friend group that I could relate to, or no one in my family even that I could ask questions. And I think that's one thing that really changed my life, is this one person like her that I could always ask, and also the community itself, because I'm sure even now everyone can relate. I don't think I've ever been in a room with so many people that I just genuinely love, and yeah, it's just really something that's changing lives, and not only from my story, but so many other people in the community as well. And it's not the big things, it's just the small things at very important moments in life that I think make the huge difference.
Thank you very much. Tahir, what about you?
So, first of all, thank you for you all for being here. This is the first time that I'm on stage and talk, and seeing the product of 2 years of community management and work, and like we are not just like one person or two people, 3 people. There are so many people that work behind 2hearts, like, and try to organize meetups, try to manage the community, try to get money for like even nicer events like this stuff. As you can see, there are about 50 people, I guess, or even more, 2,000 in the community, who actively work to make the world more diverse. So big applause for that. I'm very happy to be able to talk here in front of you. So, to my background, before I talk about the mentorship, or in general 2hearts, I guess it's good to know a little bit about my background. I'm Tahir, I'm 24 years old, and student, entrepreneur, as you heard from Constanze. And the thing is that I'm second-generation immigrant, and as stated in the presentations or in the talks before, what this community gives is access, or what you might think is access. But if you, from my perspective, I grew up, and I'm the first one to really study and go to university in my family, and there was no one who could like share his experience with me, like what to do after school, what to do in university, how you structure life, and how you structure life in a way that you program it to be successful, or in a way where you say it was successful. I did not have that person. And for me, I was always proactive. I tried to chase opportunities, chase this and that, and kind of shape my way. And this is also how I got to my first mentor, Iskender Abi. Happy to see you also again in real life. So the thing is, I started to study, and I studied economics. So there's nothing about tech or whatever. So how did I come to a tech community? Why is diversity so important for me? Also, another person in front of the rows is the co-founder of an initiative I took part of at the university called Tech Academy. So that was the first thing, or the first time I really encountered technology and how technology empowers people to achieve more and connects people from different parts of the world. And the thing is that while working there, I structured a conference, and that was also the first time I read about Iskender Abi. So I looked for people who are diverse and who are role models. And when I was the first time on his LinkedIn profile and read his articles, etc., I was like, wow, it's not just wow, I want to be that person, I want to be him, you know? Most of the times people don't like to talk about role models, or they say I don't have a role model, but like I genuinely felt like I want to be like him. He did so much, he achieved so much, and that was also the first time that I saw someone, a role model in that sense, that showed me as an immigrant or as someone whose background is not that easy, or who does not start one step ahead. You can achieve so much, even in a country like Germany. So the first time I contacted him about the conference, and I got ghosted, by the way. No reply to that.
Playing hard to get.
I still followed him. I looked up articles. I just read about him, and I was just a fan in that sense. And at one time, I just, like Fariza did, I just did cold outreach. I wrote an email. I poured my heart in that email, and just said, I want you to be in my life and shape with me my professional and.
So that ambition is very admirable. We became much more professional now, so you don't have to chase mentors on LinkedIn these days.
That was before 2hearts was established, so that was the main thing. 2hearts at that point was non-existent to the public. It was in December 2020, something like that. And the thing is that I just wanted him to shape together with me my professional and my personal life, and that's.
And Tahir, may I just interrupt there very impolitely because of the time? Because I think you're alluding to something very, very important that also Fariza mentioned. It's sometimes really meeting that one person that really shines through his or her lives and accomplishments and backgrounds. But I think it's also, and Fariza, you also alluded to it, it's also the process of mentoring. So it's not just a one-off. So maybe just to conclude the mentoring part, can you maybe in 1 or 2 sentences sum up, also for us to learn actually, because I think we all can get better at that if we're in that role, what makes a good mentor? Fariza, do you want to start? Tahir, you start?
Yeah, I think that's a very difficult question. What makes a good mentor? I think mainly someone who listens to you, but who also, I think it's very important that you maybe look up to your mentor and that it's someone that inspires you. And I had that feeling like very strongly with Gülşah. Obviously, I already talked about it, but someone who is maybe at a stage in their life and can give advice to certain situations that you're in. I don't know what it was for me, but it's maybe the advice that you give paired with that you want to listen to that person and that you want to like learn everything they tell you, and maybe like shining through and being there for you in those maybe difficult situations of life or like transformational situations in life, like those important steps in life, and they kind of guide you through it. Yeah, that's what I would.
Thank you. Tahir?
To add to Fariza's points, I guess the most important thing is, first of all, that you can relate to the person, so that you see yourself in this person or see someone who you admire. And second of all, of course, the experience. In my example, it's 17 years. So he's 17 years older than me, 17 years more experience. And the really nice thing about mentorship is that you don't need to live all these years. You don't need to make the same faults or mistakes. You can just learn from them because, for example, your mentor did it. And that's I guess, the thing that makes great mentorship. Personal relation and also a lot of experience on the mentor side.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Chun, over to you. Your story with 2hearts is a complete different one. You actually, we played matchmaker. You actually found a co-founder in the 2hearts community. Do you want to share the story, how that came about?
So I'm very happy that I'm not the first person talking about stalking other members in this community, because that's exactly what I did. I was, I think, 16 months into my own journey as a solo entrepreneur at that point of time. And I would say I've encountered an end of that part of the journey, and I was desperately looking for someone who was truly complementary to what I was and what the company and the product needed. And it took me, some other candidates as well to work with them to know what I was really looking for, and I got really good advice. Even though I'm, developing an app and it's a tech product. People have told me from the beginning you need a CTO, so I went hunting for a CTO, and then I realized, oh my God, I'm doing femtech, female health. It's really hard to find a female CTO out there. And then someone told me, actually, you need a great product, so how about looking for product profiles? And this is when I went to the 2hearts community, typing in product profiles, and then I cold called them on LinkedIn. And when my co-founder replied, that was one of the best replies I've ever heard, was that she was so specific in, I want also to found in medical products and medical care, which is very, very unique because everyone who's in digital health knows how much regulation it involves, how much hurdles there are, and not many people want to take this journey. So I was really pumped when I saw that message, and it has been a great, great ride since then. It's very unfortunate she can't be here today. This is because she just had her first baby, which is also, I think, the youngest 2hearts member, Julie. I know Tan is watching, so hi. And it's been great.
I can imagine, and you alluded a bit to that, it's not trivial finding like the right counterpart, right, for such a venture. So what would you recommend? I mean, here are some people in the room who have already found it, as we could see earlier, but probably also a lot who are thinking about it or who are in the middle of founding something. So what are your recommendations? How can I go about to find a co-founder? What are the watch outs? What are your tips also maybe with regards to 2hearts community specifically?
So it's very surprising to myself when I reflected back on this, is that actually it really depends on what kind of business you want to build. And I'm referring to whether this is a venture-backed business model or not. Before I started the journey, a lot of people told me, how about you think about bootstrapping? And the only reason that they told me about thinking about this question was, whether this product is, meant for scaling globally or whatever, then that's the only point you need to evaluate on, which falls short of what I think it actually means. Because in a venture-backed business model, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of speed required for the team to build the product, to make it and go to market with it. And so the people who need to be behind that idea and that business need to have a really strong background and a big overlap, actually, to bring that speed to the market. And what I did wrongly before Tan was that I came out of somewhere where nobody, or with a less startup ecosystem people, so they didn't know what that required. So I partnered with them because they fit the skill profile complementary-wise, but they didn't fit the personal and professional background that I needed for being my complementary co-founder. So this is actually where I say, I didn't know that beforehand, is that if you choose a venture-backed business model and you need that kind of speed, you need that team that is able to deliver on that speed. And apart from that, you need also that huge overlap on professional and personal growth. And Tan is just that, because we know, as been said previously, both really hard workers. We have a lot of commonalities through our entire history, employment history, that it's basically she's my other part, right? Yeah, so this is very unique insight that I didn't know beforehand. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And as I said, this is obviously a panel that sheds a spotlight on your individual stories and your success stories, but obviously also on the businesses that you create. And I do want to take the last question, Chun Chun, to you, and give you the stage to tell us more about this actual business that you're doing and the app that you created. And I saw when I said fellow menstruators, there was a lot of like laughter, excitement, quite a mixture. But maybe you can tell us a bit more what this is, because I think not just on the tech side of things, but also on the societal side of things, you're really pioneering something there. And to quote Johan, the time is now, I think, to go deeper also into gender-sensitive health issues and how they play out in the workplace. So I think this is very pioneering, very bold to be in that business and in that debate culturally. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about the app and what you're also trying to achieve there.
Happy to. Oh my God, I don't want to do it as a pitch. But actually, I'm 1 out of 5 women or menstruators has missed work due to period problems. And also, 1 out of 5 patients who have suffered from this do not disclose why they have missed out on work. This is due to the huge stigma that menstruators have, actually, is that they don't want to tell their employers about the real pain that they're having or the real cause why they're missing out of work, because they don't want to be labeled as less productive, right? So we have 2 issues that we actually try to fight with the app. Is, first of all, we provide the patients a non-medication way to actually prevent their pains and symptoms every month, and thereby, just telling them about like what they can do on the lifestyle side, what they can do actually with their own body, which I find very, very much empowering to know that you can do a lot with your own body to prevent having that kind of pain. And second of all, we go to companies. We are offering this as a employee benefit. And there we educate how you can actually create a workplace and a work culture that's truly inclusive and truly acknowledge that we are having different biological needs. And just because everyone needs toilet paper, it's, for half of the people out there in the world, tampons and hygiene products are as essential as toilet paper. So all of this we are actually fighting for with Cycleo, and I would really, really be happy to talk about more if anyone wants to know more about it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm sure a lot of people will approach you later. Thank you for your work in this space and also for opening up our minds towards another dimension of diversity that I think a lot of us are not aware of. So thank you very much. Marie, over to you. You also have a completely different story with 2hearts because you're part of the internship program. So maybe you can share a bit more about the program, why you applied, and what your experiences has been.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for being here, first of all, for the introduction. So yeah, as you said, I was working at Trade Republic. It was my first job out of my bachelor's. And yeah, I was on the finance team, and I learned more about venture capital back then, and I became super engaged with the topic. I really wanted to join venture capital, became determined, and started to look for ways to do that. And as you all know, or the people who looked for a venture capital job know, the funds are very small, and it's really hard to just enter the industry when you start with. And when I saw the 2hearts opportunity, I was extremely happy that 2hearts was providing that chance for for people of the community to join the internship program and to be able to have this access that we mentioned several times tonight. So it's really a matter of having the network and knowing people that can actually help you to get a foot in the door. So My parents also have no business background. They don't really know what I'm doing until I explain it to them. I had to explain to them what investment banking was, what venture capitalists do. So from my family perspective, I never really had the insight into all of this. And in 2hearts, I found this great community with people who also have a multicultural background and really understand the advantages and also the disadvantages of it. And I just felt that it gave this access to people who would not have it from their family and from their natural environment and network where they grew up with. So.
Yeah, thank you. And it's good to know that while Judith and others are leading the pack, there is new talent coming up with ambition in the VC area. So what has your experience been with the internship program? What would be your recommendation for others if they would look for that program? How can you apply? What do you need to take care of? What's your recommendation here?
My recommendation, well, for the internship program, obviously, to join 2hearts and to become a part of this great community. And yeah, as I said, I think it's super important to build your network. And I think as soon as you start to get interested in venture capital, you kind of naturally converge towards doing so by joining communities such as 2hearts or, for example, Start Berlin and several others that will put you in touch with people from this ecosystem, from startups and other funds. So I think this is the most important advice I would give people who look to enter the industry. And second of all, to stay up to date, be informed, know all the news about startups. Yeah, I think these are the two most important things I would share.
Thank you. And what's next for you?
What's next for me? Well, I really do enjoy the internship. Everyone at Cherry is great. I'm learning a lot, and I think also that they took part in this 2hearts program is just signaling that the venture capital industry is really changing and trying to be more diverse and include more people. So very happy about that. And that's also showing me that this is an industry I would love to stay in and to work for. And additionally, I think the job itself is just very great. You get to back great founders, and you do that for a living. So I think that's really amazing.
Thank you so much. So give it up for Marie. And thank you also for sharing so much positivity around this. I think this is very encouraging, just what Judith was mentioning. So Ivan, last but not least, UA Talents. I think a lot of people have heard about the organization, have seen the work, but would you mind sharing once more what you're doing with UA Talents and how it's helping people?
Yeah, sure. So UA Talents is as simple as that. It's Ukrainian talents, and we are essentially matching employers in Europe specifically, but actually across the globe, with talents from Ukraine that fled from the war. As simple as that.
Yeah. Are they in a specific field? How do they find you? How do you match them? Can you share a bit more about the processes?
Yeah, so it's actually varies a lot on the specific field of profession, right? Because many of you might experience that getting a job in Germany or in Europe is very much different than getting a job in any other country, first of all, outside of European Union, and also depending on the profession, certifications and whatsoever. So we are doing 3 streams. First, the easiest one, and but also the most impactful one is actually getting technology specialists matched with companies. And why I say this is the most impactful one, because within the Ukrainian case specifically, each person that is hired, that is Ukrainian, right now donates like 20 to 30 to 60 to 90% of his salary into the causes to support Ukraine. So this is like the biggest impact you can do monetary-wise right now. And so for this one, we match employers both directly, like mostly manually, and also doing specific like targeted events to match like cohorts of candidates. There are like more than 30,000 or even close to 50,000 IT guys that are looking for jobs in Ukraine remotely, but we also do that on site in Europe as well, which tends to be very important for founders in Europe recently, given the changes in the trends, unfortunately. And also what we do, we help other companies to get in contact with employees and potential candidates in other different fields through our job board, where companies post their jobs and candidates go there, check their job search, and can apply there directly. And we also help employers with some specific programs, like we did special programs with Bolt, for example, to get a lot of people apply to simpler jobs, which do not require language proficiency, which was really important at the beginning of the migration after the war, the escalation of the war had started. And we did the same with McDonald's. Like hundreds of people actually applied to these opportunities, and this was like really impactful for those people to find this real simple first jobs to get first money there, right? And the third thing we're doing, we're helping Ukrainians get into educational opportunities so they can prepare themselves for the next job wave, because not everybody can enter the job market right now, unfortunately, given the qualifications. Not everybody can acknowledge qualifications. And language specifically, German market is quite tough language-wise, and so people are spending months learning that, and we help them to get into those programs as well.
Thanks for sharing that. And you just mentioned the challenges there are, especially also on company side of things, to identify the talent, to really integrate them due to maybe old processes or a very traditional way of selecting talent, integrating talent. Do you have a recommendation for companies like ours, for example, Telefonica, what we can do to be more open for talent that might not fit exactly, the playbook of recruiting?
Yeah, like one of the cases that worked really good, and it's just an example of another company from Sweden. It's one of the employers from our network. The company is called Blocket, is the Swedish eBay, like really big company. And when they reached out to us, they told, look, we have these compliance issues. We are not hiring. We're not hiring remotely. We want people to relocate, and that was a really big limitation at some point of time, because like mostly men are not allowed to leave Ukraine right now, and people in tech, and they were looking for mostly people in tech, are men, unfortunately, in Ukraine yet. This is changing, but it's still the status quo. And so I told straight away, look, I know this is the policy, right? I know this is like your company strategy. At least it has been, but the situation is really different, right? I'm sure you have the policy that you can allow a contractor to work for your company, at least for some point of time, right? And I'm sure you can turn this on at least for half a year or like for a year. So please consider opening up at least one spot per team, or like several spots for contractors like that who are in Ukraine, who are looking for jobs. But like for a tech guy who is in Europe, it's not going to be a big deal finding a job, right? Even in Europe, even right now. And they've actually opened up for that. Like they returned to me in 2 days and told, yeah, like we talked to our CTO and she approved, right? So it was amazing. And this is my first advice, and like being open up to the things that fall outside of your policies and standard procedures, right? Because if you follow the policies and standard procedures in unprecedented situations like that, you're never going to be able to embrace this change and actually help people to the extent that you'd like to do that.
Thank you, and I think there are a lot of valuable lessons in there, which is also, and thank you for your work in this, because I think it does take individuals, with a drive like yours, and who's also being strategic and in this with a heart as well, or two hearts, to really open minds and redefine also playbooks of companies and the standard, how things have been done. And I think even though it might affect in a positive way lives of many Ukrainians, this is not charity, right, for companies and others. And I think this is also something very important to keep in mind. So thank you so much for sharing that story. Thank you for your work you're doing there. And the time is ticking. So I want to thank you all for sharing your stories, like personal stories, your success stories, your career, your businesses with us here today. I think a lot of people who listened and watched are inspired and motivated by your stories. And as I said, round of applause, please, for that. And I think as I mentioned earlier, this is not just about individual stories, but it's really a story about the power of community and what can happen if we all come together, if we have each other's back, if we open up doors, we the 2hearts community and its allies. And I think this was very beautiful to hear. And before I wrap it up, I do want to allude to one more theme, which is celebration, right? Ali, you mentioned that earlier in your remarks as well. And I think, and many of you might be able to relate, a lot of us don't take the time to celebrate our successes, our achievements. Frankly, it's very often cultural, right? You don't take pride in your successes. You know, you keep your head down and humbly work your way through. But I do want to use this panel today here, Ivan, Marie, Chunchun, Tahir, Fariza, to celebrate your successes. We see you, we see the struggle, we see the hustle, very often against a lot of odds. So give it up for these 5 panelists and their successes, and let's celebrate each other. Thank you so much. Ali, over to you. And I'm getting off of the old man chair, he said. I failed to rebrand it, I guess, but let's see.
You rejuvenated that chair. That's good to know. Now it's as good as new. Wonderful. Thank you so much to Constanze and this wonderful panel. We are actually in the final stretches, and trust me, I know you're very eager, and rightly so, to network, to get to know each other, because this is obviously just the part that takes place on stage. But as I can already see in the back, the networking has already begun. So if you can keep it down, for a couple more minutes. If you can keep it down for a couple more minutes, we're almost there. Because as you remember, in the beginning, 2hearts obviously has 4 co-founders. We already heard from Gülşah and Min-Sung. Of course, we want to hear from the other half, from the other 2 co-founder as well. And with that, it's my great pleasure to welcome on stage Oktay Erciyes and İskender Dirik.
So, hi. So, I think the specific expression regarding old man's chair was because of me. I'm 53. I'm the oldest founder of 2hearts, but I'm fit enough to stay on the scene here and then, occupy 5 or 6 minutes of your valuable time. I'm really proud of the success stories we all jointly have created over the last 2.5 years. And this is not created only by 4 people, as previously said. We are 50 plus active people who are doing it on a daily basis, organizing the mentoring sessions, organizing the partnership sessions, organizing events in North Rhine-Westphalia and some other regions as well. And you cannot, I'm really, really, really, really proud. And I'm really, I'm coming from Düsseldorf, and there was a carnival season and it was colorful. But I think this context is more colorful than even the Düsseldorf Carnival. So I was lucky enough in my career. I'm 53, and when I graduated, it was 25. I decided to make an MBA in UK and master in that time, in the 90s, in Germany. It was a no-go. No one understood what I was doing, etc. Nevertheless, I had fantastic leaders at Preussag AG, later on at Bertelsmann, later on at, let's say, Trenkwalder Droege Group, where I was CEO of a group of 40,000 people, and now also in a company which is really underlining what diversity means and matters, because we have in the company, which is a consultancy company, also in the, let's say, ecosystem and private equity arm, we have a COO, Esra, for example, of the group entirely. She has also a migration background. So we have proven cases, but as the previous 2 panels, the first one showed the reason why more, based on facts and expectations, even by the leaders that, like Johan, what we still have to do, challenge the standards of the streams. The second one showed, if we do this, how many people we can make happy and how much assets we can bring to the availability of companies, meaning human assets, and also to the society. I would like to share some, let's say, key messages. And for that, I'm sorry, I'm always challenging some standards and streams. I would like to switch to German, because I know that our video streams are listened also by the German society, German media, German institutions, etc. So therefore, I will continue in German. I'm sorry for this, but just sharing my conclusions, my recommendations, and my expectations. We build a great ground and growth foundation for the next years to come, but there is a lot of work to do. Wir wollen und wir werden insbesondere die inländischen Talente in sozial schwachen Regionen noch mehr und mit der Basis, die wir jetzt bisher erreicht haben, noch effektiver, noch landesübergreifender. Und wir haben auch Standorte nicht nur in der Dachregion, sondern wir haben mittlerweile Chapters, auch in London und selbst Mitglieder in UK und selbst in Asien. Wir wollen diese Standards auch weltweit, nicht nur in Deutschland, sage ich, insbesondere in der Dachregion, aber weltweit implementieren und zu einer neuen Normalität, damit zu einer neuen Norm machen, damit die Gesellschaften was davon haben. Warum müssen wir das tun? Insbesondere in der Dachregion. Wir haben die gigantische Herausforderung politischer Natur, davon reden alle Politiker, des demografischen Wandels. Wir haben Fachkräftemangel. Wir haben Integrations-Issues, nennen wir es mal so, ja, Herausforderungen. Sind die Institutionen, die Companies dafür vorbereitet? So wie in der ersten Migrationsphase der Gastarbeiter, als da Millionen an Gastarbeitern rübergekommen sind, selbst nach 4, 5 Jahren hat denen keiner Deutschkurse angeboten. Später waren die schuld, weil die kein Deutsch gelernt haben, obwohl die 70 Stunden, 80 Stunden arbeiten mussten. Aus diesen Fehlern müssen wir lernen. Wir haben seit 2015, 16 aufgrund der Kriegsflüchtlinge und im letzten einem Jahr wiederum knapp über 1 Million aus der Ukraine Leute ins Land geholt, berechtigt, und die müssen wir gut integrieren, damit wir denen eine gute Basis geben können. Der demografische Wandel dazu bringt große Herausforderungen in Sachen Fachkräftemangel, und da müssen wir gucken, dass wir die Talente im Land in allen Aspekten rechtzeitig abholen, motivieren, guiden, unterstützen. Und das ist auch einer der Gründe, wir reden hier über Gründertum, ja, Unternehmertum, ja, Karrieren im Technologieumfeld auch ja. In Nordrhein-Westfalen haben wir beispielsweise, und dazu bin ich auch ganz, ganz dankbar, dass die Bundstiftung auch jetzt kleinere Spenden geben wird. Wir haben bisher das aus den eigenen Mitteln gemacht. 2hearts at School als Initiative gemacht. Da gehen die Rollenmodelle aus unserem Kreis. Da waren auch aus unserem Ökosystem Leute dabei, wie der CTO, der Ivan von Trivago, an die Schulen und erzählen den Jugendlichen, damit auch indirekt den Institutionen, sprich auch den Lehrern und den Herrschaften vor Ort, wie die Arbeitswelt der Zukunft aussieht, was für Skills benötigt werden, warum diese benötigt werden, warum ein Anwalt keine 40 Seiten Verträge mehr selber schreibt, sondern es sowas wie Smart Contracting gibt, warum der Arzt in Zukunft mehr Technologie braucht. Wir haben ja sehr viele potenzielle Gründer oder Gründer, die auch in dem Bereich auch selbst mit ärztlichem Background jetzt Technologieunternehmen gründen. Und damit wir die Kinder und deren Familien in sozial schwachem Milieu rechtzeitig abholen, weil deren Eltern arbeiten halt als Blue-Collar-Worker teilweise in Industrien, und die Vision über die Zukunft müssen wir mit denen teilen, und das gelingt uns da teilweise, dass wir das auch selbst in den Schulen machen. Also es ist nicht alles karriereorientiert, wir sind sozial bis zu den Schulen, das geht also bis zu den 13-, 14-, 15-Jährigen runter. Da bin ich auch stolz, dass die Mannschaft in NRW das sehr, sehr gut aufgesetzt hat, und dass wir da mit der Vodafone-Stiftung und so weiter und mit der Coding-Schule zusammengearbeitet haben. Also geht nicht um Selbstbeweihräucherung, es geht nicht um Karriere und Gehaltslevel hochzustufen, es geht um ein soziales Für- und Miteinander. Und das ist im Prinzip 2hearts. So. Und die Jugendlichen, die interagieren mit Mentoren, mit Vortragenden, mit Gesprächspartnern, die ähnliche Sozialisationsgeschichten haben. Ich habe das so oft erlebt in Mentoring-Sessions, wo die Leute immer sagen, das brauche ich dir nicht auszuführen. Warum hast du kein Praktikum gemacht, war beispielsweise meine Frage zu einem Mentee. Da sagte er, ja, weil ich 6 Wochen mit meiner Familie, aber das brauche ich dir nicht auszuführen. Nämlich dann nach Serbien zu den Familienangehörigen fahren mussten. Im Sommer konnte er dann kein Praktikum machen. Das sind ganz andere soziale Dynamiken, die kannst du mit deinem Migrationshintergrund ganz gut verstehen. Dann sind die auch sehr offen, sehr direkt, und dann muss man denen ganz andere Wege vorzeichnen und denen auch Gründe liefern, dass die dann bei den Bewerbungsgesprächen genau das so zum Ausdruck bringen müssen. Das ist kein negativer Startpunkt, sondern eher das, was die als kulturelle Eigenschaft mitbringen. So, Aber da hört es ja nicht auf. Wir geben auch Mentoring und Unterstützung, Networking für die Gründer, haben wir eben gesagt, ob die ihre Co-Gründer hier finden oder wir werden in Nordrhein-Westfalen wieder gemeinsam mit Brick hoffentlich in der zweiten Jahreshälfte eine sogenannte migrantisches Unternehmertum, das wird die Session sein, so eine Session wieder organisieren, wo wir im Prinzip gegenüber den Institutionen, von Unis angefangen bis hin zu Banken, bis hin zu ich sag mal, Family Equity Gruppen erzählen und vorpräsentieren können, dass es auch sehr interessante migrantische Gründer gibt und an Erfolgsstories das als Standards noch zu definieren. So, von daher müssen wir vieles verändern und das beginnt bei den Schulen, das beginnt bei den Family Equity Gruppen, das beginnt im Mindset, das beginnt im Bewerbungsgespräch, aber es ist alles noch in den Kinderschuhen, wir sind noch nicht da, wo wir sein wollen. So. Und wir definieren Diversity Inclusion nicht nur als Erwartungswerte, sondern wir wollen diese Erwartungswerte gemeinsam als Values, nicht nur als Corporate Values, sondern als Society Values neu definieren. Da helfen natürlich messbare Zahlen, Kennzahlen, die aktuell nicht verfügbar sind, weil die Herkunft in den Systemen der HR-Abteilung gar nicht abgespeichert wird. Aufgrund der Data Privacy nennen wir es ja. Ne? So, wir haben also etwas mehr als 2000 hochtalentierte 2hearts-Member und darauf bin ich extrem stolz, wenn man mich gefragt hätte, trotz der Corona-Zeit, trotz der, ich sag mal, beruflichen Beschäftigung, die wir alle haben und so weiter, hätten wir das in 2 Jahren so auf die Beine gestellt, hätte ich am Anfang wahrscheinlich dann gesagt, ja, wenn wir die 1000 erreichen nach 2 Jahren, die aktiv sind, bin ich froh und stolz. Jetzt haben wir knapp 1600 Leute in der Slack-Community, weitere 400, die selbst über die Slack-Community hinaus dann die Kooperation machen. Von daher können wir wirklich darauf stolz sein. Mein neues Ziel ist 10.000. Ja. Das in den nächsten 10 Jahren, weil jeder von euch ein Multiplikator ist, jeder von euch ist ein Rollenmodell und jeder von euch ist damit auch einer, der dieses Ökosystem erweitert. So. Und wir wollen nämlich auch das migrantische Unternehmertum in Deutschland stärken, weil Deutschland braucht für die Transformation, die vor uns steht. Wir müssen gucken, dass die sogenannte, eben war die Rede vom Automotive-Industrie, Maschinenbau, da hatte ich auch meine Karriere begonnen und so weiter. Wir stehen vor einer gewaltigen Herausforderung, nicht nur in der Demografie, nicht nur in der sogenannten effektiveren und smootheren Integration, sondern auch unsere Industrien müssen sich wandeln und die Risikobereitschaft, diese Komfortzonen zu verlassen, extra Meilen zu gehen, etwas zu gründen. Das haben wir in anderen Ländern ja statistisch gesehen, USA und so weiter, dass man mit erster oder zweiter Gründergeneration sehr viel innovative Businessmodelle aufsetzen, umsetzen und etablieren kann, sehr erfolgreich. Wir sehen das Potenzial bei 2hearts-Mitgliedern und Beyond 2hearts-Mitgliedern. Alle Leute, die selbst, der muss nicht jeder Mitglied bei uns sein, also mit Migrationshintergrund da. Deshalb wäre es sinnvoll, dass wir Gründer jeglichen Natur aktiver unterstützen und auch nicht nur Karrieren ermöglichen, sondern, und das ist meine Forderung an die Politik, an die Wissenschaft, an die Institutionen, an Unternehmerverbände, wir brauchen Leute mit Migrationshintergrund auch bei den entscheidenden Instanzen als Mitentscheider, sei es Aufsichtsräte, Beiräte, Investitionsausschüsse. Wir brauchen da auch Leute mit Migrationshintergrund. So schaffen wir die Normalität und damit die neue Norm. So, also Deutschland ist bunt und das nicht nur zu Karnevalszeiten, habe ich eben gesagt, immer und zukünftig. Ich bin sehr stolz auf Deutschland, weil wir in einer Geografie hier leben. Das Land bietet sehr, sehr viele Möglichkeiten, selbst für die First Generation, die jetzt rüberkommen können und sollen und müssen, weil Kindergärten sind gratis, Schulen sind gratis, Studiengänge sind bezahlbar. Also wenn ich das mit USA und UK vergleiche, dann haben wir sehr, sehr viele Wettbewerbsvorteile. Diese Wettbewerbsvorteile sind wir auch in der Pflicht, im Ausland zu erzählen, zum einen. Zum anderen glaube ich, dass die interkulturelle Kompetenz bei der neuen digitalen Transformation der Wirtschaft, die diese 2hearts-Community und Beyond mitbringen, für die neuen Industrien, für die neuen Servicebereiche, die wir etablieren, monetarisieren wollen, ein zusätzlicher Asset ist. Eine weitere Sprache, eine weitere Kultur öffnet 1000 mehr Türen. Also von daher, lass uns das gemeinsam eingehen, den eingeschlagenen Weg fortsetzen, neue Projekte definieren, neue Impulse setzen für ein friedliches, erfolgreiches und glückliches Miteinander und füreinander gemeinsam an diesen so wichtigen soziokulturellen, wirtschaftlichen und politischen Themen arbeiten. Das beginnt früh in der Schule bis hin zum Unternehmertum oder bis in Institutionen rein. Wir wollen Deutschland, Europa bunter, erfolgreicher, nachhaltiger aufstellen. Und wir sind jetzt gerade noch am Beginn, aber wie gesagt, ich bin einer der Ältesten hier. Ich sehe sehr, sehr große Potenziale. Nein, ich sehe sehr, sehr große Potenziale und ich bin stolz drauf, was ihr alle hier mit initiiert, mitgestaltet habt. Danke. Jetzt ist der Iskender an der Bühne.
This is a wedding ring. There's a name engraved. It says Emel Canan. Emel Canan. Emel Canan is not my wife. Emel Canan is my mother. And this ring I inherited from my father, Melih Dirik. Because my father left us last year. It was the most challenging year of my life. He got sick on a Monday. He left us Friday the same week. I buried him with these hands in Iskenderun, which is a city in the region of Hatay, the city that gave me my name via my father, the city that inspired my father to give me my name, the city at a beautiful beach. But there is no sun anymore in Iskenderun since the 6th February of this year. And we are pretty sure my father left us last year because he didn't want to see his beloved home city falling apart, being completely devastated by the earthquake. But my father actually spent probably more time in Hamburg Wilhelmsburg, the biggest district in Hamburg, than in Iskenderun. In this little shop, a jack of all trades shop. He was selling mobile cards there, contracts, he was selling insurances, he was doing translations, he was selling tickets for flights to Turkey with Öger Türktur. But you know what? I rarely saw my father back in the days because he was working like crazy, more than an investment banker. And one of the most important reasons for that was because he spent more than 50% of his time in this shop helping his community, serving his community. People came there and asked him about papers they got from institutions that they didn't understand. He translated it. He helped them to get jobs. He helped them to get support. He served his community and sacrificed his life for it. This is something a newspaper back in the day wrote. I translated it from German into English. This is a screenshot from an online portal, a local news portal. It reports about the memorial ceremony of my father in Hamburg-Wilhelmsburg before we brought him to Iskenderun. And it says, "Böyle kalabalık görülmedi," which means that's an unseen crowd for such a memorial ceremony at, I think, 12, like in the midst of the day, at a weekday. They all came because this man served them. He impacted their lives and the lives of their children and their children. This is what another newspaper wrote about my father. After the memorial ceremony, I was driving home in my car. And suddenly, and I will never forget that moment, I will never forget the street, it was Amreda, and suddenly the sun came out. Suddenly the sun came out, and there was a warm feeling very deep in me, an unbelievably warm feeling. And I felt joy. I felt joy coming from the memorial ceremony of my father because I realized something. All these people came to his memorial ceremony because he served them. He impacted their lives. And I was like, how proud. I was so proud about my father. How lucky I am that this is my father, and how happy I was for him that he left like that. And I was realizing he was physically dead, but he was still alive, living through these people that he impacted, living through their stories that they told me about him and how he impacted their lives. It was an unbelievably happy moment. And I realized this is the purest form of leaving legacy with infinite impact. Leaving legacy with infinite impact. And I was looking at this ring, and I was smiling while driving. I was smiling because it was such a happy moment. And I said to myself, I told myself, every time I am struggling, every time I will be in a challenging moment, I will look at this ring and I will smile. My father had the most beautiful smile I've ever seen, at least at a man. But this brings me to you. This brings me to you. Look, there is an unbelievable energy in this room. Let's keep this energy when we leave this room. Let's keep this energy when we leave this event. Let's continue helping each other. Let's continue having impact on others' life. This is an amazing chance, not only for the community, but for you. This is your chance to live even after your physical body is not alive anymore, through the stories of the people you impacted. This is your chance to leave a legacy with infinite impact. Look, when we started 2hearts, it was, my 3 co-founders and roughly 20 amazing core members. But now, it's not anymore about us. It's just about you. 2hearts is you. You are 2hearts. Please own this. This is a chance for you, but please own this. If you see challenges, we are growing fast. This comes with challenges. I know it's different when you were one of those that were part of the first 100, 200. I know it's different now. There are a lot of challenges, but please own it, fix it. This is your chance to leave a legacy with infinite impact. But that brings me to my second ring. Look, attention please. Now, I need your full attention. I will show you now the best visual from my perspective to visualize a culture shock. What is that? Feierabend. Who said a Turkish wedding? Who said a Turkish wedding? Kudos. How do you know? Let me make it a little more precise. That is the best visualization of a culture shock for me. You know, when you get an invite for a Turkish wedding, it will say 5 p.m. at a Saturday or Sunday usually. And when you go into that wedding room location at 5 p.m. on a Saturday or Sunday, you will find some Germans being there at the corner, looking around and being like, is this the wrong place or wedding? Nobody is there. It's just us. And be sure they've been there 5 minutes before to make sure that they find the right location, have time to find the best place to sit, so that they at 5 p.m. will sit there. While the Turkish guests know what 5 p.m. actually means. Nothing. So at 6 p.m., the first ones would come, then at past, there would be more in the room, and then around 7-ish, most of them will be there. But there is still a flaw with this image. I said Turkish wedding, right? Turkish wedding. A multicultural wedding for me is a hot spot for cultural shocks. Like, I love it, especially when the cultures are so contrary to each other, right? So this is from my very own wedding, an image from my wedding. There is another moment I will never forget that is related to my wedding. And you know, my parents are very traditional. They are cool, they are relaxed, but they are very traditional. So they're very religious, and they don't prefer to be in environments where there is a lot of party and especially alcohol in place. So we agreed on something. We agreed before on the plan that they will leave the wedding before the real party kicks in. Right? So that was our agreement. So my parents had an amazing time at our wedding, and they said bye to everyone. They were just about to leave, right? So it was done business. They were just about to leave the room, and then the DJ saw that. The DJ saw that, and he was like, "No way, you're leaving now." And there was modern, cool, funky music playing, and the DJ pushed the button. And then, I'm sorry, it's very cliche, but then Tarkan with Şıkıdım was suddenly there. And my parents, they were like, just before going out, and then it was like, oh, what is that? So they stopped, went back, and they danced. They danced. And then there were more Turkish songs, more Turks, and they danced. And it's, I think, the last time I saw my parents dancing. And this is one of these moments that I will never forget. And I'm so thankful to that DJ because he made that happen. This DJ, oh, I'm so thankful. Thank you, DJ Placebo. So, this is DJ Placebo, and DJ Placebo is not yet another DJ, Erkan, right? Yeah. He is not yet another DJ. So, he is the DJ, the main DJ of the biggest tech stage in Europe, tech conference stage in Europe. He's the main DJ of the OMR, Online Marketing Rockstar stage. And he has played, I think, at the Cannes Film Festival, at the Echo Awards, and he's the DJ of Bo and a couple of other very known guys especially in Germany, right? And when I called Erkan, DJ Placebo, I told him about the idea here, and his immediate reaction was Ehrensache, which means it's a matter of honor. And you know, for people with our backgrounds, honor is a very important thing. So he was like, that's a matter of honor. No money, no question. Like there were others, I can tell you, that were different. But he was just, it's a matter of honor. And that's why I want a big round of applause for DJ Placebo. Thank you. You know, I think Erkan said something like, it's an honor for me to give back, to give back. And I want to say some last words about that. Over the time, I came to the conclusion that giving back that there's a flaw in the idea of giving back, because it implies that you need to receive first to give. It implies that you first need to receive in order to give. And you know, I was one of these persons who were always talking about helping, blah, blah, blah. But I was always like, I first need to get to that certain stage. I first need to reach that career step, and then I can give back. But my big learning is, you don't need to receive to give back. You will give, and along the way you will receive. And this brings me to my last words. I have a wish for you. I have a hope. My hope is that 2hearts will help each of you to create something that is bigger than your lives. By leaving a legacy with infinite impact. Thank you.
Stay with me, Skender, stay right here, because we're actually, first of all, incredible goosebump speech. Thank you so much for opening your heart, your life, and really sharing the most intimate moment of your life with this group in order to make a point, to make several important points. So thank you so much for that. It's not much more one can or should add after a very perfect ending such as this, other than to say we have come to the end of this event when it comes to the stage. Obviously, the networking aspect is just starting, but it's been a true pleasure to be part of this event. Thank you, Gülşah and team, for asking me to be part of it. It's been delightful to meet all the inspiring change makers and many more of you certainly to come until the rest of the evening. I think you're already here, Iskender, you stay here. Why doesn't the rest of the co-founders, why don't you all come up with a big round of applause as well. Come up here so we get you all back here one more time. Please. And Gülşah, I think the last words of this event should not come from me. I think it should come from you.
Yeah, actually from all of us. Obviously, not everyone that deserves to be on the stage, not all of you could be here, and so we represented all of you. And there are some people, you can see them on these slides, really, really deserve to be here. And before calling them out, I would first like to invite Elnura and Julia on stage, who made this event possible. Please come on stage. Thanks so much, Elnura, for joining us as an event manager since day one. Thank you to Inga for the amazing introduction. You were such a gem and made everything possible because we all are techies. We don't know how to do events, and you do know, so you helped us. Thanks so much. And this is the superstar that you all need to meet afterwards. This is Elnura Ashimova. She is our first ever full-time employee at 2hearts, worth 100. Like, I don't know how she did it, but literally she was reachable 24/7, and now you will hopefully also deserve the well-deserved applause now and get a well-deserved break afterwards. Thanks so much. Thank you.
And this one goes to Gülşah because I worked in average double as much as we man did over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks time. Thank you very much for everything. And great job.
Thank you.
I'm still on? Yeah.
And now
So
we
now
would
the
like
real
to
heroes,
invite
please.
everyone on stage. Oscar, Yasemin, Ziaf, May, Tahir, Farisa, Johann, Samuel, Pepe, Suhail, Sophie, Gleb, Maya, Karim, Shetza, Josef, Aicha, Adi, Ray, Serge, Nergis, Constanze, Raji, Martin, Lara, Joel, Rosemarie, Jelal, Julia, Mark und Simai. Please all, everyone who's here, come join us. Get forward, get forward.
I think the average engagement per week per head here is not less than 15 hours.
Like these guys together are working more than worth 150 employees, and they are doing it on top of their jobs. So thanks guys so much for being part of 2hearts. You are 2hearts. Let's take a picture together. Danke. And with this, officially, we can start our networking that you all have been waiting for. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us here and remotely. Noch ein Foto?